Ever been humiliated in front of others and didn't know why? That sinking feeling when everyone's laughing at your expense? Here's the brutal truth. People don't do this randomly. There are 6 specific reasons why people humiliate others publicly, and today we're exposing them all using ancient Stoic wisdom. Stick around. By the end, you'll never be caught off guard again. Let's be real. Public humiliation cuts deep. That moment when your face burns, your hands shake, and you wish the ground would swallow you whole. But here's what most people miss. Humiliation says more about them than you. The Stoics knew this 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal daily as emperor. Epictetus was literally a slave. They developed bulletproof strategies we'll break down today. If you're tired of being someone's punching bag, this is your playbook. Right now, you might be thinking, why me? Maybe it happens at work. That colleague who always jokes about your mistakes in meetings, or family gatherings where certain relatives poke fun at your life choices. Here's the cold, hard truth. People humiliate others for 6 psychological reasons, and none of them are actually about you. They're projecting their own insecurities, fears, and power struggles. The good news? Stoicism gives you the ultimate defense, not by changing them, but by changing how you see and react to these attacks. 1. They feel powerless. Let me paint you a picture of how this plays out in real life. Imagine you're at work, and there's this one colleague who always seems to make snide remarks about your ideas during team meetings. At first glance, it feels personal, like they're targeting you specifically. But here's what's really happening. This person feels threatened by your competence. Maybe they're insecure about their own position, or maybe they're struggling with imposter syndrome. The Stoics recognized this pattern 2,000 years ago. Epictetus, who was literally a slave, faced constant humiliation from his owners. He wrote, "When someone tries to insult you, remember that their opinion has no power over your reality unless you grant it that power." The key insight: their behavior says nothing about your worth and everything about their own insecurities. When you start viewing these attacks through this lens, something remarkable happens. They lose their sting. Instead of reacting emotionally, you can respond with detached observation, almost like a scientist studying interesting behavior. This doesn't mean you should tolerate abuse, but understanding the root cause gives you the power to choose how or whether to respond. 2. They're testing your frame. Picture this common scenario. You're in a social gathering and someone makes a joke at your expense. Everyone laughs, including people you respect. Your face gets hot, your palms sweat. It's that awful moment where you have to decide how to react. This is what Stoics call a frame test. The person isn't just making a joke. They're probing to see if you'll maintain your composure or crumble under social pressure. Marcus Aurelius faced this constantly as emperor, with senators and advisors constantly trying to undermine him. His solution? He wrote in his private journal, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." In modern terms, this means keeping your emotional center no matter what. When you remain unshakable, something fascinating happens. The group's respect subtly shifts toward you. The person testing you looks petty, while your poise makes you appear more confident and authoritative. This isn't about suppressing your emotions, but about recognizing that your reaction is the only thing you truly control in these situations. 3. They're emotionally immature. Consider this painfully relatable situation. A family member constantly makes passive-aggressive comments about your life choices during holiday gatherings. They disguise it as just teasing, but it clearly crosses lines. What you're dealing with here is emotional immaturity, the inability to express thoughts and feelings in a healthy, adult way. The Stoics had a profound understanding of this phenomenon. Seneca wrote extensively about how to deal with difficult people, noting, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." When you recognize that hurtful comments say more about the speaker's limitations than your worth, you gain tremendous power. Think of it like this. Would you get upset if a toddler called you names? Of course not, because you understand they lack the capacity for mature communication. The same principle applies here. The emotionally immature person is essentially stuck at an earlier developmental stage. This perspective allows you to respond with what the Stoics called philanthropia, a kind of wise compassion that protects you without requiring you to stoop to their level. 4. They're copying toxic behavior. Here's a workplace scenario you might recognize. A manager publicly berates employees because that's how they were treated coming up through the ranks. This is learned behavior, what psychologists call social contagion. The Stoics observed this pattern centuries ago. Musonius Rufus taught that most people live in a kind of moral sleepwalking, unconsciously repeating behaviors they've seen without examining whether they're right or effective. The key insight: these people aren't necessarily malicious. They're just stuck in destructive patterns they've never questioned. When you understand this, you can employ what I call the pattern interrupt technique. Instead of reacting with anger or defensiveness, you respond in unexpected ways that force them to become conscious of their behavior. For example, calmly asking, "What exactly are you hoping to accomplish by saying that?" can be revelatory. This approach comes straight from Stoic philosophy, the idea that our job isn't to judge others, but to help them, and ourselves, wake up to better ways of interacting. 5. They fear your potential. Let me share a story from our Stoic community. A young entrepreneur named Jason was mocked by his peers when he started waking up at 5 a.m. to work on his business. They called him try-hard and delusional. But here's what was really happening. Jason's ambition was holding up a mirror to their own lack of progress. This is what Epictetus meant when he said, "If you want to improve, be prepared to be thought foolish and stupid." When you start growing beyond your current circumstances, it inevitably makes some people uncomfortable. Their mockery is actually a backhanded compliment, proof that you're moving in the right direction. The Stoic approach here involves what I call strategic indifference. Instead of arguing or defending yourself, you simply continue on your path with quiet determination. Over time, one of two things happens. Either they stop because they see it doesn't affect you, or their criticism becomes increasingly ridiculous as your success becomes undeniable. This is how the Stoics turned opposition into fuel, by recognizing that resistance often means you're heading where most people lack the courage to go. 6. They lack self-awareness. Imagine this frustrating situation. Someone makes an incredibly rude comment to you, then acts shocked when you're offended. "Can't you take a joke?" they say. This is classic lack of self-awareness, what the Stoics called ignorance of the good. These people genuinely don't realize how hurtful they're being because they've never developed the habit of self-reflection. Marcus Aurelius had a brilliant strategy for dealing with such people. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, "The people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't pessimistic, it was practical. By anticipating this behavior, he could meet it with patience rather than surprise. The modern application? Practice what I call compassionate detachment. Recognize that their behavior comes from a place of unconsciousness. Respond firmly if needed, but don't take it personally. As Epictetus put it, there's only one way to happiness: to stop worrying about things beyond our control. Their lack of awareness is their problem to solve, not yours to suffer over. Here's the ultimate truth. Humiliation only works if you accept it. The Stoics were masters at this. When others tried to shame them, they'd reframe it as the other person's problem. Your real power isn't in stopping their words, but in deciding whether those words matter. That colleague? They're trapped in petty games. That friend? Still mentally in high school. You're evolving beyond needing their approval. Remember these 6 reasons: powerlessness, frame testing, immaturity, social copying, fear of your growth, and lack of awareness. When you spot them, you take away their sting. The Stoic secret? See humiliation attempts as free resistance training for your character. The stronger you get, the less their words land. If this helped, hit like and subscribe. For the full Stoic toolkit on handling disrespect, check out our next video on turning insults into fuel.